Hello everyone. Every page tells a new story. Welcome to the world of endless animation. The movie begins in a mythical kingdom called Lamboria. We meet a girl named Ellie, who is riding a winged cat and is very happy as she flies in the sky with her companions. Suddenly, a flare shoots out from the royal palace in the sky, and Ellie understands that it is a summons for her from the palace. We learn that Ellie is the only daughter of the king and queen of Lamboria. Her friends remind her of her 15th birthday party and ask if she will invite them to the palace like last year before she leaves. Ellie tells them she won't be throwing a birthday party this year and will only have a small celebration with her parents. Even though her friends are surprised by her decision, they congratulate her on her birthday. When Ellie arrives at the royal palace, the minister, Nazara, meets her at the door and apologizes for shooting the flare during her break. In front of the guards, she tells Ellie that her parents urgently need her. Ellie enters the palace, and we discover a secret that she and everyone in the palace have been hiding from the kingdom's people. Her parents are monsters. Ellie explains that a year ago, her parents went on a trip to the forest, and a black vortex appeared, taking control of them. They were cursed and turned into monsters. Ellie shares that everyone in the palace is suffering because the king and queen cause massive chaos, destroying everything in their path inside the palace. Ministers Nazara and Polinar are unable to help Ellie find a solution to break the curse on her parents. Ellie struggles to care for her parents and manage the kingdom's affairs so that the people don't notice the absence of the king and queen. Ellie creates wooden statues of her parents to appear with her on the palace balcony to greet the people. She then goes down to speak to the people herself, but she feels deep sadness because she misses her parents' presence. Despite this, she holds on to hope that her parents will return to their human forms. Ellie is startled by a knock at the palace door from General Cardona, the army's commander, who has been trying to meet the king and queen for a year. However, Polinar and Nazara keep coming up with excuses to prevent her. This time, Polinar tells her that the king and queen are drafting new laws, but Cardona insists she'll return the next day and won't leave the palace door until she meets them. Polinar and Nazara ask Ellie what they should do, warning her that if Cardona finds out what happened to the king and queen, she'll exile them far from the kingdom. Ellie, without a solution, leaves them and goes to her room, crying. Suddenly, an elderly maid enters and tells her that the post office chief wants to meet her. When he enters, he informs Ellie that he has good news. The sun and moon seers have responded to her message. We learn that over the past year, Ellie realized there was no natural way to cure her parents, so she sought supernatural help. She sent a message to the powerful sun and moon seers who live in the dark forest, explaining her parents' problem and asking for their assistance. The post office chief tells Ellie that a brave bird delivered their reply, but suddenly it turned to stone after possibly eating enchanted berries from the dark forest. Ellie takes the bird and retrieves the letter, but it shatters in her hands. Saddened, she comforts the post office chief and then opens the letter. The letter instructs her to add water to the paper for the message to appear. Ellie places the letter on her desk and grabs a water bottle, but the letter disappears. She asks her pet, Flink, if he ate it, as he tends to eat anything he finds. Flink denies it, but the truth is revealed when the letter, now wet, reappears in his mouth, showing its contents. Ellie finds a figure of the sun and moon seers, who tell her they were deeply moved by her letter and are on their way to the palace. Ellie is overjoyed, believing her parents' problem will be solved, especially since it coincides with her birthday. Meanwhile, Polinar and Nazara prepare for another plan, frustrated with constantly fixing the destruction caused by the king and queen. They decide to announce the king and queen's death to the people, observe a mourning period, and then crown Ellie as queen to restore order. Suddenly, Ellie enters and tells them she has found a cure for her parents. She gathers everyone in the palace to welcome the seers, but they are shocked when a giant, frightening frog enters. The frog opens its mouth, revealing the sun and moon seers, who are terrified upon seeing the king and queen. Ellie is confused by their reaction, and they explain that they thought her description of her parents as monsters was metaphorical, assuming it was a teenage exaggeration due to family conflicts. They had no idea her parents were literal monsters. Suddenly, the king and queen attack the seers. They had no idea her parents were literal monsters. Suddenly, the king and queen attack the seers, who flee through the palace windows. Ellie is deeply saddened and scolds her parents for ruining her efforts to help them. However, she later feels guilty and apologizes to them, knowing they don't understand what's happening. She offers them pieces of her birthday cake and sits with them, reflecting on her childhood memories with her parents, and she prefers to walk around every place in the palace that held memories with them. The next day, she wakes up to the sound of commotion and is shocked to discover that she forgot to close the room doors the previous night, and her father and mother escaped. She is even more shocked when she sees her father and mother, after leaving the palace, chasing the kingdom's people, which causes a state of great fear and terror among the people. At that time, Cardona moves with a significant amount of her power and surrounds the king and queen to protect the people. However, Ellie runs quickly and stands in front of Cardona, telling her that these monsters are the king and queen. Ellie tries to calm the king and queen to prove the truth of her words to Cardona, but they are in a state of intense anger because of the soldiers in front of them. They throw Ellie away, and she falls to the ground. The soldiers then quickly move and throw nets over the king and queen. At night, All the kingdom's residents gather and object to the presence of the king and queen among them, even after learning that they were cursed. Here, Nazara is forced to announce Ellie's appointment as the new queen of the kingdom. The people agree because they love Ellie. Cardona intervenes and declares that the king and queen will be exiled to a faraway place for the safety and security of the kingdom's residents. Ellie cannot object to the decision. However, the next day, she notices the guards preparing to transport her father and mother and tries to find a way to save them from the soldiers. Ellie is surprised when she finds Flink has the seer's magical key and uses it to communicate with them. She learns that they have been searching for the key since they were in the palace. She calms them and informs them that she has the key, explaining what happened to her father and mother and asking for their help. They understand that the key she has will help her move her father and mother to the dark forest, where they might find a solution to their problem. Ellie quickly moves and uses the magical key, transforming it into a magical vehicle that moves at incredible speed. Ellie rides the vehicle and escapes with her parents. However, Nazara sees them and believes that the monsters kidnapped Ellie and fled. She screams loudly and orders everyone to move to save her. Cardona, along with many soldiers, pursues them. Cardona orders the gatekeepers to close the gates, but Ellie asks Flink to use the magical key to find a solution. Flink follows her instructions and manages to keep the gate open. Flink then uses the magical key to enchant piles of hay, turning them into monsters that stand in front of Cardona and her group. Cardona rides one of the winged cats and joins Nazara and Polinar in chasing the king and queen. During the chase, Polinar's body merges with Flink's due to the magic's effect. Polinar is shocked by what happened and asks Ellie to help him return to his body. Ellie ignores his request and forces him to use the key. She creates an opening amidst the trees in front of them, and they enter it. They find themselves transported to the dark forest. Ellie goes to the seer's house, gives them the magical key, and asks how to break the curse. Ellie is surprised when the seers tell her that only her father and mother can break the curse. They explain that she must walk through the dark forest until they reach the Lake of Light at the mountain's summit. They tell her that her parents need to immerse themselves in the lake to break the curse. They also tell her that the lights will illuminate her path to guide her. Ellie thanks them, gathers her group, and sets off on their journey. While traveling, Ellie sees soldiers flying in the sky and quickly runs with her parents to hide inside a tree trunk. Ellie is surprised to see glowing circles flying in the air, emitted by the birds in the area, whose sounds are filled with love and positive energy. However, the king and queen argue, scaring the birds away, and red lightning indicating their anger and negative energy starts emanating from them. This angers Ellie, who also emits lightning from her mouth. At that moment, a black magic vortex approaches her, almost taking control of her. The king and queen, seeing this, want to save her, but the negative energy lightning creates a barrier between them and Ellie. Suddenly, words filled with love for Ellie come from the king and queen, causing the positive energy circles to reappear. The black magic vortex disappears. When they emerge from the tree trunk, Ellie is very happy, thinking her parents have remembered her. However, she discovers that, although they can now speak, they still don't know their identities or remember her. All they know is that Ellie has been treating them with love all this time. Ellie talks to them and tells them she is their daughter, sharing happy memories with them along the way. They eventually reach a high hill, and Ellie waits for the light to appear to guide her to the Lake of Light. She waits until night, but the light doesn't appear. Ellie sits sadly beside her parents and suddenly asks them if they remember her name. Ellie is surprised when her mother remembers her name and hugs her. At that moment, light appears in the distance ahead of them. The next day, Ellie and her group continue their journey until they reach a place filled with white sand. Ellie is surprised to find that Polinar has left marks behind them, guiding Cardona and her group to their location. They are then shocked to discover that the sand they are walking on begins to swallow them. Ellie realizes this only happens when clouds pass over the sand, while areas illuminated by light remain solid and safe to walk on. Ellie, along with her parents, tries to find a way to navigate through the areas covered by clouds. However, the king and queen disagree, leading to a major argument. This disagreement causes the black magic vortex to reappear, and Cardona and her soldiers arrive at the scene. The black magic vortex envelops the area in darkness, turning the sand into a moving sea that swallows anyone who steps into it. Noticing the situation, Cardona orders her soldiers to stop immediately. Suddenly, Ellie sees a small winged cat about to drown, with its parents unable to save it. Ellie asks her parents to help her to save him. They follow her instructions and all move after the cat until they manage to save him at the last moment. Because of the cooperation between the king and queen, the black magic vortex disappears. After Ellie hands the cat back to its parents, she is surprised to find Cardona and her army coming after them. The king teams up with the winged cat to create a large sandstorm. The storm obscures Cardona's vision and her forces. When the storm clears, Cardona is shocked to find no trace of them. Meanwhile, Ellie and her companions are hiding inside a mountain passage. Once they confirm that Cardona and her soldiers have left, they continue their journey. However, Polinar is sad because he can't return to his natural form. Ellie reassures him, saying he will return to normal, but only after they restore the king and queen to their original selves first. Suddenly, Suddenly, Ellie realizes that the king and queen have disappeared. She calls out to them, but no one responds. Suddenly, small animals from Polinar's species emerge from the mountain's crevices. Ellie suggests to Polinar that they might know where the king and queen are and asks him to communicate with them. However, the problem arises when these animals offer Polinar a worm to eat to prove he is trustworthy and not a threat to their territory. Polinar reluctantly eats the worm after the animals turn it into a popsicle. The animals then trust him and consider him a friend. Afterward, they guide Ellie and Polinar to the location of the king and queen, which turns out to be the home of the winged cat. There, Ellie sees the little kittens playing together, and she joins in to play with them. Meanwhile, the king and queen watch the parents happily enjoying time with their children, and their memories return. Ellie is overjoyed when they recognize her as their daughter. She holds their hands and jumps with happiness. At that moment, the lake of light appears before them at the mountain's peak. They all rush toward it. When they reach the lake, Ellie and Polinar step into it, marveling at its beauty. However, when the king and queen approach the lake, it moves away from them. Suddenly, they are confronted with visions of their past in the dark forest before the curse befell them. The king and queen realize that their predicament was caused by their constant anger and arguments. They decide to separate, believing it would be better for them and their daughter, Ellie. When Ellie learns of their decision, she becomes very upset and accuses them of being selfish. She tells them that, instead of finding a way to reconcile, they chose to separate so easily. She also tells them they don't understand her feelings or suffering. She expresses her deep loneliness and despair, explaining that despite their transformation into monsters, she never lost hope and didn't let anger or frustration control her. She continued to care for them, stayed by their side, and risked her life for them. After all this, they are abandoning her, choosing to live as monsters and apart from each other at the first sign of trouble, forgetting they have a daughter who they have sacrificed and struggled for them. Ellie's anger becomes so intense that the black magic vortex traps her. When her parents try to save her, Cardona's soldiers capture them and imprison them in cages. Polinar, however, enlists the help of his animal friends from his species. They surround the soldiers and manage to free the king and queen. Cardona and her forces are shocked when they see the king and queen speaking to them, explaining that Ellie is in danger and must be saved. The king and queen race up the mountain with all their strength, using their powers to move the mountain peak and direct the lake's light into the black magic vortex holding Ellie. The king and queen's plan succeeds. The vortex disappears, and they apologize to Ellie, admitting their mistakes and promising never to fight again. Ellie is overjoyed by their words, and they all embrace. The lake of light surrounds them. Breaking the curse, the king and queen return to their natural forms, and everyone celebrates with joy and hugs. A year later, Ellie narrates that she is living a happy life and that her parents live in separate houses to avoid conflicts. Suddenly, a signal flare is launched from the royal palace, and Ellie becomes annoyed as she is summoned at her break time as usual. When she arrives at the palace, she is met by Nazara, who apologizes for launching the flare and explains that her parents urgently need her. When the palace doors open, Ellie is surprised to find that her parents have thrown her a grand birthday party. They have invited all her friends, and everyone at the palace celebrates her birthday. Even the seers come especially to congratulate her, expressing their pride in her for what she did for her parents. Her parents present her with a gift she loves, and they allow her to go out and have fun with her friends. Ellie is thrilled, runs to hug them, and then rides on the back of the winged cat, flying through the sky in utter happiness. The movie ends. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the